Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord and making headlines. The 31st CARICOM Intersessional wraps up with agreements reached in a number of areas. Jobs in the United Kingdom for Barbadians under the Farm Labour Program. Government exploring ways to recycle wastewater. And in sports, St. Albans boys complete the three-peat while Good Shepherd girls repeat in the Andrea Blackett zone of Knapsack.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
And in our top story, CARICOM leaders have concluded their intersessional meeting with an agreement to advance work on the single market and economy. It includes a plan to simplify how some categories of people move between states and whether those categories need to be expanded. Now, Chairman of CARICOM, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley, spoke about these decisions and more at a media conference moments ago at the Lloyd Erskine Deferred Center. Our Lisa Boom joins us live now from the LASC. Good evening to you, Lisa. What can you tell us?
Well, Lisa, thank you very much. And that press conference that you mentioned wrapped up just moments ago after lasting about an hour. And during that time, Prime Minister Motley reported significant progress to the media here, representing Bahamas and other islands that were present. Now, she said that colleague head Dr. Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent will be pulling together a previously constituted working group that will help advance the issues of the CARICOM single market and economy. She also said that specific plans have been made on the free movement of people.
Therefore, we anticipate that a report will come to the next heads of government meeting that will review those technical working groups that came out of the Rose Hall Declaration in Montego Bay in 2003. Similarly, we've asked Prime Minister Skerritt, who is the lead Prime Minister on free movement within the region, to bring back up a review of all of the processes to further simplify how people move and whether there should be further categories of persons who should be allowed to move, for example, persons with CSEC certificates, and to be able to ensure that there is a wider pool of persons who can move.
And Lisa, a report on that from that meeting is expected to be forwarded to the heads to be discussed in July. Now, we've also been told that the private sector and the Caribbean Congress of Labour made pivotal interventions at this meeting, having been invited as associate institutions of CARICOM just last year. Prime Minister Motley says they were asked to look at food security, renewable energy, air and the maritime environment, and ICT, all with a view to helping develop a plan aimed at saving the region money and making good on trade.
The report that came sets out a pathway towards our being able to work towards substituting 25% of our food import bill, which at the current moment stands at about $5 billion US, that we would look to cut out 25% of that within the next 5 years. What was heartening is that they had a clear plan across livestock and crops, 7 key areas that would save the region $420 odd million US, but also would have the potential to be able to earn foreign exchange outside of the region.
The report from that meeting will be forwarded to the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee, where an implementation plan is expected to be hashed out. Now, one of the other major agreements reached by the head relates to crime and violence. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley of Trinidad and Tobago says it will now be treated as a public health issue.
We now need to focus in a proactive way, seeking to get to the root cause of this upsurge and sustained violent behavior of our people. Experts are telling us that given the effect of this kind of behavior, it is now as a public health issue. and ought to be looked at in that context. So CARICOM has taken a position that we would be reviewing it in that way. So there'd be a lot of initiatives going forward from the preventative side and the proactive side.
And Lisa, Dr. Rowley also said steps will be taken to speed up the implementation of the CSME.
We want to move more quickly in having the effects of those decisions, but there are certain administrative and operational issues that we need to address. And from that standpoint, Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados have agreed to do certain things from an administrative standpoint to allow a further and severe expectation of the implementation of some of the decisions that we've taken with respect to the CSME.
Now, Lisa, one of the developments here at the LASC for this 31st intersessional was the absence of Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Now, it was said that he is dealing with pressing electoral issues, but he was represented by Foreign Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith.
We had just called a by-election, there was a resignation from the cabinet, and accordingly there were matters of state that had to be dealt with. So he delegated to his foreign minister. As is normal and usual, you notice he's not the only prime minister who is absent. These things happen sometimes, and I think it's important for us as a region to not create divisions where they don't exist. Prime Minister Holness engaged with Prime Minister Motley and had apologized before I even landed in Barbados.
And the foreign minister said she was happy with the issues dealt and the strategies set out to tackle the major issues in the region. And we also caught up with Special Envoy to the Prime Minister for Financial and Investment Services, Professor Avinash Prasad. He spoke about Barbados being removed from the European Union's grey list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions. He described it as a significant development in attracting additional investment into Barbados.
Of course, we don't want to legitimize any of these lists. They are illegitimate in their construction. A number of the people who come up with these lists act as judge and jury. So we're not legitimizing the list, but it's great to be off these lists. And unfortunately, many investors look at these lists. So the fact that we're not on the list, we are a cooperative regime, we are a regime that everyone approves of, is very important. Especially now we have the most competitive tax rates in the world amongst OECD compliant countries. So being off the list, we are extremely attractive for any investors coming in because, you know, the way you get growth is by getting investment.
And we were also told that Barbados is one of the islands that is keeping up its commitments to the Caribbean Development Fund. We got that information from Chief Executive Officer Ronald Sumer.
We are actually expecting payments in the short term, but I'm not at liberty to say exactly where these will be coming from. What I can say definitively is that Barbados is well on its way now to being fully financially compliant, and we expect by April that Barbados will be fully paid up.
And Mr. Sumer says sustained financing of the fund remains a problem, but the heads have given the assurance that they remain committed to its existence. He says a majority of the countries continue to face fiscal challenges, but are looking for ways to looking for innovative ways, that is, to come up with what has to be paid.
The proposal that was discussed at the meeting as part of the report from the Commission on the Economy is supposed to be put now to the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on the CSME. So it is only when that discussion takes place we will know exactly what shape this additional financing will take, what modality. And from my own perspective, since we are approaching the end of the second cycle of the CDF. Officially it ends in 2020, but it is likely that it will be extended to 2021. I believe that new modality for financing will be considered in the context of the capitalization of the fund for the third cycle.
And Lisa, I know it may not seem that way from all of our reports, but there were some lighter moments here at the LASC for the conference. A number of school leaders were invited to observe the opening session.
It was really good to be in the presence of people who were very successful and who represent their countries really well, because I want to be in that position because I essentially want to study international business when I'm older. So it gave me an insight into what I would be getting myself into when I pursue my job. It was really, really informative.
I was extremely honored to be in the conference room because I feel like it makes me feel like that I can do more in my capacity as head boy than just be a figurehead. But I feel also that more measures should be put in place to allow us as young people to have a voice on those international forums, because then people get to hear our experiences direct instead of having to go through a third party.
It was a good idea to invite the young leaders of Barbados to get some insight into how decisions are made on a regional basis. And I'm very proud to represent my school here today.
I was particularly interested in hearing about what the Honorable Mia Amor Motley said about unifying the Caribbean region, that all the territories need to work together in achieving the goals and addressing the issues which are plaguing the territories. And I also enjoyed the fact that all the territories were able to meet and then they go delve into discussion on what these issues are and how they intend to address them.
Well, Lisa, a lot to take in here over the last 2 days at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center for this 31st intersessional. Many decisions made on some key issues for the region going forward. So that's it here from the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center, from the entire team here and myself. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, to you and the team. In other news now, 50 Barbadians are set to gain employment in the United Kingdom in the coming months through its farm labor program. The opportunity, which will see the successful candidates receive 6-month contracts, starts this April and arises through an arrangement with the Ministry of Labour, CJNM Consulting and the charity Concordia UK. Labour Minister Colin Jordan says the venture is in keeping with his government's mandate of finding decent employment for citizens.
This opportunity for us is one that we intend to take full advantage of. We see it as an opportunity for workers to earn a living. We see it as an opportunity for our workers to be ambassadors for the country and to share in another culture the benefits that we have here and that we can share. Education, being able to share in the United Kingdom of our experiences. And we also see it as an opportunity for workers and the country, through those workers, to earn foreign exchange.
Well, the 50 Barbadians will be filling harvesting roles across different farms in the UK, but Concordia CEO Stephanie Morrell and managing consultant of CJNM Consulting Christopher Griffith have hinted at the possibility of more Barbadians being recruited in the future.
This morning, the British government announced that the pilot scheme has gone from 2,500 in 2020 to 10,000 this year. So a huge jump, and really we're grateful to the government for seeing that the need in the sector is acute. British agriculture desperately needs workers from outside the European Union.
The agriculture sector is the only sector that has been allowed to continue to sustain, to bring in non-English workers really to come into the UK. So it's a lot of faith in the sector, and Barbados is now going to benefit from not 50 workers, but potentially a lot more as long as we can supply them as the sort of process goes and the Barbadian workers show themselves able, which I am happy to really believe they will.
Well, with worsening water scarcity brought on by the prolonged drought, the government and the Barbados Water Authority are exploring partnerships with the private sector to improve the island's water conservation efforts. Aaliyah Briggs explains.
Last year, the government announced plans to upgrade the island's sewage treatment plant in order to recover wastewater for further use. And as it explores alliances, Minister of Water Resources Wilfred Abrams and personnel from the BWA were exposed to the wastewater treatment process utilized by the Barbados Bottling Company. While expressing satisfaction in the plant's ability to recycle water for non-potable use, Minister Abrams says he looks forward to collaborating in future ventures.
On the surface of it, it appears to be one of the most high-tech plants in Barbados. Forward-thinking plants. It seemed to covered all of the environmental concerns. But I look forward to talking with you because I noticed that the management and the approach is very innovative, and there are a lot of rooms for innovation and collaboration that I have seen so far being here. So I'm excited to have the in-camera conversation with you as we look towards synergies between the Barbados Water Authority and BBC in Barbados.
BBC General Manager Andre Thomas says as part of the Coca-Cola Company's World Without Waste project, about 15% of the water used on the bottling plant is recycled.
Right now we produce 8,000 gallons of wastewater that can be used for useful purposes within the Barbados market. So either irrigation of the 1 million trees that the Prime Minister has talked about, irrigation of football fields for the National Sports Council. So those are the sort of things that we have implemented already and will continue to develop these innovative things to help the environment. So Barbados Water Authority, the Sanitation Authority, to ensure we work together to achieve the objectives of the country.
As Barbados' drought situation continues to heighten, the Water Resource Minister suggests that a water prohibition notice will be issued in the coming days.
Cabinet has already agreed to the Water Authority's request and the Ministry's request to reintroduce the prohibition because it is necessary. We are still in a drought situation. We are still water scarce, and the demand for water is great.
Representatives from the Water Ministry, the BWA and BBC are in discussions to facilitate knowledge exchange, particularly in the area of wastewater treatment. Aaliyah Briggs, CBC News.
The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, or SEDEMA, is hoping to forge even closer relations with the Government of Canada, especially in building disaster resilience. That was one of the main hopes announced as Canadian parliamentarian Emmanuel Dubois paid a high-level courtesy visit to SEDEMA's Resilience Way headquarters in Barbados yesterday. Now, speaking after touring the facility and even testing some of its equipment, Mr. Dubois said his government would be willing to give further assistance to SEDEMA.
Here, especially in the Caribbean, I know that you have, because I'm from the Caribbean, hurricane, you get a lot of kind of disaster like that, so we can help, we can give assistance. We have a lot of specialists there, so I'm here to discuss that also with Mr. Jackson and to report that to Canada when I'll be back tomorrow.
And SEDEMA's Executive Director Ronald Jackson noted the Canadian government has contributed over 8 million Canadian dollars over time to several of SEDEMA's projects.
One of the areas that will benefit from that support right away is, we already commenced the process of procuring upgraded telecommunications equipment, which comes out of the experiences of 2017, where we identified in our rapid review that communications was an area that showed some challenges, and they've provided some bridging support for us to be able to effectively deliver services to member states, as well as trying to solve the problem of sustainable financing for SEDEMA coordinating unit, and that includes its entire architecture around response support.
Here is that tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Marijuana use has been linked to health problems, both physical and mental, including chronic coughing, chest colds, lung infections, breathing problems, cancer, depression, anxiety, and personal disturbances. Just because it comes from a plant does not mean it is harmless. This tip is brought to you in association with the National Council on Substance Abuse, promoting drug awareness. Barbados and other Caribbean countries should be getting much-needed assistance in fighting climate change. Commonwealth Secretary General Baroness Patricia Scotland says they have been able to raise over $30 million to help small and vulnerable states adapt.
We have already raised for our Commonwealth small states $30.8 million, which has been distributed. but we have $503 million in the pipeline. And whereas most people's applications are about mitigation, the majority, I think well over 70%, between 70 and 80% of our projects are adaptation. Because for us, we have to adapt to the reality that climate change isn't going away.
In Guyana, the police force there has launched an investigation into 4 of its own, including an inspector who were allegedly involved in an attempt to traffic cocaine through the Ogle International Airport. Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan is awaiting word from the police commissioner on the outcome of that investigation. And we have a report from NCN News.
Several police ranks are under investigation for alleged collusion with a civilian to traffic cocaine out of the country. Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan says depending on the outcome of the investigations, the ranks could face criminal charges.
It will have a negative impact once you have misconduct in the force. It is always, and that is why I have a zero tolerance for that. There are elements about the gravity of it. Some things are so grave that you have to dismiss policemen, terminate them immediately. Some are even graver still that you have to charge them after terminating their services. But there are some for which you can transfer and so on. It is at the discretion of the Commissioner of Police and the policies that we have outlined already.
Head of the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, Leslie Ramlal, in a recent interview, noted that despite successes in the drug fight, the unit still faces challenges due to a lack of cooperation at the lower level.
And sporting action is just ahead. Stay with us.